Bonjour, Émilie Talpin, OM System Ambassador. Welcome back to the channel. I have a little surprise for you guys. It's my very good friend and mentor, Lee Hoy, and he's gonna tell you the 3 mistakes that photographers tend to make. So let's get started. So I am so excited, Lee, that you're here, because first of all, I know it's been like, what, 3 years that we've been communicating?
At least that we've known each other, yes, before we finally got to meet in person.
I cannot believe it. And I'm so happy because that's your last state in the US.
That's
you're
right.
visiting.
Maine was my 50th state. Finally got here. Love it. Beautiful state. Glad to finally be here. To get to meet you.
Yeah, exactly. That's because you get...
Yeah.
I am so happy. It's just been amazing. I worked with Lee for, what, 3 months, I think, for the break free?
At least 3 months.
Yes,
yeah, it was a while.
I did bother him for way more than 3 months, I think. I'm still bothering you.
No, I tell you, it was a lot of fun. It was a great program. It was, you know, I didn't know what to expect out of it. And when they said that you had picked me, I was like, okay, well, all right, I didn't expect that. So it was a lot of fun. We really did a lot of fun work
Why
together.
would I pick you? I was like, oh my God, that photo of the, was that a wasp in flight that you took?
Yes, the photo of the wasp in flight.
Oh my God, it's like, yes, I want to work with him. So I'm so glad because we are actually at the Acadia Birding Festival, and you are an OM System Ambassador, but you also work with White Side Nature Tour.
That's right. I'm a senior photography workshop instructor, and I go to destinations all over the world. My favorite thing to do is to be in the field and teach. I love helping someone capture a better image than they've ever captured before, teaching them how to use their gear, finding things from the photograph, making sure their exposure's right on, how to use autofocus. So for me, you know, it's not about selling prints. I get some images in magazines and that's cool, but there's nothing like helping someone capture a better picture than they took before.
So Lee, you've been to a lot of workshops. You've been, you can't even count them. You probably don't even know how many you've been to.
I've done a ton. No, I've done a ton, and I love going to different destinations: Zimbabwe, Zambia, Galapagos, Yellowstone in winter, Big Bend National Park. I love Colorado in fall. So I like to do, you know, wildlife, landscape, macro, night sky, high speed, hummingbird, high speed macro. Those are all things I like. In fact, my interests are so varied and I have a hard time getting to do all of it. Camera trapping, I love doing that in my yard.
Yes.
So I like the challenge of learning and pushing myself to capture new things too.
But you must have seen some mistakes, right, in some of your workshop. What are some of the mistakes that you want to tell us about? That
Sure, there's like, I'll break it down to like 3 different categories of, these are mistakes that if I watch clients on workshops, whether they're beginners, amateurs, or even advanced amateurs, these are the mistakes I tend to see the most, and they're things that affect all of us at different times. I would say one of the top mistakes I tend to see most nature photographers make, they're worried about shooting at an ISO that's too high because they're worried about noise. And the reality is, and what I tell them is, well, would you rather shoot at a higher ISO and have a faster shutter speed and have a nice sharp shot, or would you prefer to have a lower shutter speed and always have a blurry image, but be at a low ISO? And that's really kind of a silly mindset. Now, I know that in the past, early digital cameras, the high ISOs produce a lot of noise. Being an OM System Ambassador, I hear a lot, oh, well, you can't shoot OM high ISO. I'll have you know, I am confident shooting at ISO 25,600 whenever I need to. And there's a few reasons for that. What I like to teach my clients about shooting at a high ISO is A, you really need to make sure you expose to the right. It's about collecting as much data as possible, properly exposing your image, because in digital photography, as you've probably said on your videos before, the worst thing to do is underexpose your image and try to brighten it. That's what creates a lot of noise at any ISO. But a properly exposed image, if we reduce our exposure, we're not creating any noise. So for me, you know, and earlier today while we were out trying to photograph the osprey, we were having a discussion about ISOs. I get incredibly frustrated if I have too slow a shutter speed and I end up with a blurry shot. So I would rather err on the side of a higher ISO and a faster shutter speed. And the reason I am is because I know I'm going to expose to the right. I know I want to start with a nice sharp shot. I am not going to take a high ISO image and try to save it. Oh my God, I so hate software that says, let's save that crappy shot. No, let's make a good shot great in post-processing, right? So For me, I want my clients to shoot at a higher ISO, and I'm going to challenge them again. Expose to the right, make sure your shot is tack sharp, and then use software like DxO Pure Raw 3, which I only started using here in the past couple of months. And you don't have to fear shooting at a high ISO, because with the software and with proper post-processing understandings, I know that at any ISO, and my default when I turn on my camera is ISO 1600. That's where I start, and I usually go higher. All of my images that have made the cover of Texas Parks and Wildlife, they're all higher than ISO 1600. So when people say, well, you can't, you can. Those are the key elements of that. One of the biggest challenges too, another mistake, common mistake that I see a lot of our workshop participants make when it comes to it, camera gear is so advanced. You and I love to talk about all the features on our OM system gear. And, certainly other camera systems have many features, and they've gotten, they're like super powerful computers in our hands, right? But people don't take the time to really learn their gear. I have a phrase I like to use called master your system, master your photography. Kevin Laughlin, owner of Wildside, he often says, what's the best camera? The one you have in your hand. And the reality is, I have a job. The reason I lead workshops is because I read owner's manuals. I know a lot of people say men don't. I do. All of the camera bodies I own, I've read through the owner's manual at least 3 times. Yes. I avoid the safety warnings and all the silly stuff about don't drink crap. But, what I do is I also read the footnotes. So like, I know that if I'm working in pro capture mode, my slowest shutter speed can be 6/40th of a second, right? 640th second. I know that kind of information because the more I know my system, the better equipped I am to capture the shot I'm anticipating or I want to capture. And so most clients, they look at the images we take and think, well, if I buy that camera, I'll automatically just get that shot. But if you don't master your dials, your buttons, your settings, if you're always taking your camera away from your face to make an adjustment, you're not looking at what's going on. So one of the things I try to encourage people to do, besides buy OM system camera gear, is to master the camera body you have. It isn't about having 20 more megapixels that's going to make your images better. What's going to make your images better is never having to look at your camera to make an adjustment. Because the faster you are in making those adjustments, for example, and I tell people our minds are different. My mind says shutter speed should be the front dial and the aperture should be the rear. That's the exact opposite of how cameras come. Yes. I used to try to make my mind fit our camera gear, but we're all different. You don't have to
anymore,
yeah,
right?
No, I don't have to. I can program it. Yes. That's exactly right. Buttons. On the custom modes, all my buttons are programmed differently. Now I have to keep track of that. On multiple bodies, my buttons will be different. But that's because I know that if I'm doing bird or macro photography, I might focus stack. I'm rarely going to focus stack on landscape, although I do at times, so maybe I'll put it on a different button. The reality is that the more you master your system, the better your photography will become. And so many people don't bother mastering their system when they're at home, and you should come on a workshop to learn, but you don't really want to be learning which dial does what on your camera when you're in the Galapagos. You want to be learning composition and angles and lighting. Not, well, okay, you press this button to change the ISO. Not saying I don't mind helping with that, but it's going to hamper your photography.
But you need to do some basic before you go, because you're not going to get the full experience of the workshop if you come in and you just unpack your camera. Or you have your camera and you didn't even charge your battery.
That's exactly right. And it's not that I certainly do not mind helping with that. I love taking people's cameras and programming them, walking them through the menu.
I've seen
regardless
you do
of
that
the system.
a lot.
I love doing that. But the fact is that it's very frustrating to someone when you're doing that because they don't know. Meanwhile, there comes the sword-bill hummingbird coming in that they'd been waiting for several hours or whatever. That's what I want. Because I get frustrated when they're frustrated because I know what they're missing. Not because of what I'm missing, but because what I know what they're missing. I'm probably going to be back the next year, So it really is important that you take the time. And I have different homework I give people when they're at home and say, do this and master your buttons. We call it muscle memory, right? Yes. You just do it. And I played video games till I was in my early 40s, and I used to think, why did I do that? Well, you know what? I can move a joystick on a camera like nobody's business.
That's why you're much better than I am. I'm still like step one. I'm like, Lee, how do you do all this? Like, this is really impressive.
It does help. It does help moving it quickly. Yeah. I'd say the third thing that I see a lot, and it's not so much a mistake, but it's something that hampers people's photography. We love our camera gear. We love going out in the field and shooting, but so many people don't take the time to invest in learning proper post-processing techniques.
Yes.
You know, I've judged a wide variety of photo contests, a prestigious one in Connecticut, you know, St. Louis Camera Club, some really big kind of competitions. And I would say that in both of those, 80% of the images or more could have benefited from what I would say is proper post-processing techniques, right? In that people don't understand the difference maybe between global and local sharpening. Or oh my God, people love the vibrance and the saturation slider, you know? And I have a saying when it comes to
You're talking about Instagram, all those photos on Instagram
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
saturation? Yes.
You know, the color of skies that you've never seen in
know.
nature? That kind of
Those
stuff drives me
sunsets.
nuts. Oh my gosh. I have a saying I tell people when it comes to post-processing, kiss it, don't molest it.
Yes.
You know,
well said.
subtle, if you start out with great lighting, if you start out with a great subject or scene, if you properly expose it, your post-processing should be minimal. Particularly with programs like DxO Pure Raw 3, Lightroom, or Luminar, whichever one you're using. If you're having to invest 40 minutes in post-processing an image, it's probably not a very good image to start with, right? So when you shoot raw, all post-processing should be is pulling out the data that's already there. You know, for me, but if you don't understand the why, like some books on Lightroom are kind of like what I call, if you were trying to teach a chimp how to cook. Well, if you want to increase the clarity slider, slide it to the right. Well, no crap, Sherlock. I'm glad I spent $40 on that book.
I know.
But what happens when I adjust? What is happening to the pixels, right? Like if you slide clarity right, you watch your histogram, you see it spread out. But if you slide texture to the right, you don't see that, right? So understanding the subtleties, but also there's some complexity in there on post-processing. I find most people really don't want to invest time, and I get it. You know, it's not necessarily the most fun part, right? But it's every bit as important.
Like it. I've met
I
some
love
people
it.
who, yes.
I love it.
And Lee, you actually have some excellent resources. I think on the white side there is.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Through the Wildside Nature Tours
took
website, we have free webinars, free and paid. Most of them are free. I have, like, I
You
did
have the
one recently on.
post-processing one because I know I signed up for this one and I really enjoyed it and I've learned a lot. So I'm
That's
going to
true.
put the link actually below the video. So if you are interested in signing up for this, it's already pre-recorded. But
Pre-recorded, free.
Yes.
Yeah, you bet. And you know, for me, I like teaching people the entire, from before you ever walk out of the house with your camera to when your picture is post-processed. I don't really enjoy the whole printing side. I don't really print images much. But that gamut, everything from preparation to skill, you know, I have a formula I like to talk about where preparation plus skill times patience equals luck, right? And so I enjoy that whole aspect of nature photography. And I want people to get good at all of it. Whether you go out 4 times a year or 50, the more you learn, the more enjoyable your experience will be.
That's true. So Lee, those are excellent advice, a lot of advice that you're giving us. So thank you so much. Where can we find you? So I know you have a YouTube channel. You also have a podcast. I love this podcast. So thank you so much for making it. I'm a subscriber. I've already told a lot of my friends to subscribe to your podcast. It's great. It's something that you're not gonna find anywhere. It's you. It's like a little bottle of Lee that you put in your car and you have it to drive around. I adore this podcast.
Yeah.
So
I'm not subtle.
no.
I'm not subtle. I'm brutally honest.
And I'm not expecting you to be subtle.
Yeah.
And
No,
I'm gonna put the link as well below the video
okay.
so people can subscribe and listen to it.
But
But
if you want to learn, you know, the Wildside Nature Tours website, we now have Wildside Connect, which is our own online social media that you can sign up for and ask me questions. I need to get my YouTube channel getting a year or so regular. I love that. My Capturing Nature podcast with Lee Hoy, sponsored by Wildside, you know, I'm really hoping to get a little more consistent with that since I'm working for Wildside full time. Precision Camera and Video out of Austin. I do some workshops for them. If you really want to learn, not only do I love the online resources, but you know, joining me in the field, I would say if I had to have a fourth mistake that people make on workshops, they don't ask enough questions.
Very, very,
They
very
don't ask enough questions. If you pay to go on a workshop, you pay to take a class, online, in person, ask questions. I find so many people are so shy and they're so worried about asking the wrong question. Everybody else is thinking the same thing, right? Everybody else is. So when you sign up to learn, you should be learning.
Yes, you paid for it. It's your workshop,
Yes.
you know, go and
It's your
ask
time.
questions.
That's right.
And what I love is that you're always ready to answer questions. You took like I've seen some people who took a workshop with you and you're like, yeah, just send me an email. Let me know if you have questions.
That's right.
And that's so
That's right.
important. And that's something
That's
that I really love. I know that even after the Break Free program was finished, I had questions. I knew I could count on you and give you a call. And that's something that I'm so thankful for all you've done for me, and I'm thankful that you accepted to come to the channel as well and talk to us.
Absolutely.
And I hope that you all go and follow Lee on his Instagram, on his YouTube channel,
Hop
podcast.
over. Lee Hoy Photography is Instagram. Lee Hoy on Facebook. I'm over the 5,000 friends, so just follow. That's where I post my images. And I really will. If you send me a question through Facebook, you send me a question through Instagram, you email me. I'm one of those, if I'm out in the field and I can't get to it for 3 days, as soon as I can, I get to it, because I hate when people don't have the information they need. That's true.
So I appreciate that. I'm going to put all those links below so you guys can go and check them out. And then if you have any questions, just post them below. I'll be looking at them. Lee, feel free to go and answer those as well. And I want to thank you again so much.
Oh, yes.
And next year, I hope that some of you will come and see us at the Acadia
That's
Birding
right.
Festival. It's an amazing festival. We had such a great time.
Very well organized.
Oh, so well organized, and what an amazing place. So yes, come and check us out. Come and check the festival. Go and check out Wildside Nature as well. And thank you so much. And I think, Lee, we're gonna say goodbye to everybody in French. Are you ready? In French, bonjour.
Oh, yeah, bonjour.
We
Yeah,
can
I
do,
thought
au
that's something
revoir.
fancy.
No, bonjour
I was
is
gonna
for
say,
the beginning.
You're French. You should help me. I'm West Texas. I love that.
That was my little
Yes.
quiz. You did
I tell
very
you what,
well.
I'm going to, what is it? Au revoir?
Au revoir.
Okay, ready?
Au
Au revoir, y'all.